My wife secretly opened credit cards in my name to fund her son's college after I refused to split my daughter's fund. When I confronted her, she said I was punishing her for loving both kids. Now my family thinks I'm overreacting to her desperation. My name is Marcus. I'm 42 years old, living in Naperville, Illinois, and I've been a mechanical engineer for over 2 decades. But if you ask me what I'm most proud of, it's not the patents with my name on them or the projects I've helped design. It's Lila, my daughter, 17 years old, heading into her senior year, with the kind of quiet brilliance that makes you believe in something bigger. Lila's mother left when she was barely walking. One ugly custody battle, a lot of lost sleep, and 17 birthdays later, it's just been the two of us. Every raise, every bonus, every side project I took, all of it went toward one thing, her college fund. When I met Claudia, I wasn't planning on falling in love again. She came into my life like a summer storm, fast, dazzling, a little chaotic. She had this energy, like every room belonged to her. We got married 6 years ago. She had a son, Mason, who was 13 back then. I did my best, took him to school, helped him with algebra, built IKEA furniture for his room, but I never touched the college fund. That was for Lila. Last week, Claudia found out how much was in the account. I was in the garage, elbow deep in an oil change, when she appeared with her arms crossed, and that look, the one I'd come to dread. She said she was cleaning up some files on my computer and came across the spreadsheet. "You've got over 120,000 saved for her," she said. "Are you serious?" I wiped my hands and said, "Yeah, I've been saving since she was a baby." She stared at me like I'd confessed to something terrible. "And Mason? What does he get?" "Nothing." I shook my head. "Claudia, I've told you, this fund is for Lila. That money's from long before we got married. It's hers. And Mason's just." "What? Out of luck?" She snapped. "You've been playing favorites this whole time." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Playing favorites? "Claudia, Mason's not my biological son. I've been there for him. But this money? It's not community funds. It's Lila's future." She didn't hear any of that. Her voice turned icy. "If you loved Mason, really loved him, you'd split it. You'd make things equal." Equal. That word echoed in my head all night. Later that evening, she sat Lila and Mason down at the kitchen table. I wasn't even in the room when she did it. I just heard raised voices, chairs scraping the floor, and then Lila coming to my office with tears in her eyes. "Dad," she said quietly, "if it helps, I don't mind sharing the money." I stood up so fast I knocked over my chair. "No, absolutely not." She looked so small in that moment, like a kid again. "But Mason's upset. Claudia said I should be fair, that it's selfish not to." I shook my head. "Lila, this isn't charity. That account, it's your future. You've earned it. Don't let anyone guilt you into thinking otherwise." But it was too late. The guilt had taken root. That was Claudia's gift, weaponizing emotions so subtly you didn't even realize you were bleeding. The next morning, Mason barely looked at me over breakfast. When I asked if he needed help with his financial aid forms, he mumbled something about figuring it out himself. Claudia slammed the fridge and said, "He's right. He'll figure it out, since clearly he can't count on you." The house was tense after that. Every small thing, who left the light on, who forgot to load the dishwasher, became a spark. Mason withdrew. Lila got quiet, and Claudia kept pushing. "You've been treating him like a guest in this house for years," she said one night. "And now you've made it clear who really matters." I couldn't win, and I couldn't believe she was making me the villain for protecting something I'd built with sweat and sacrifice. One night, I heard her talking to her sister on speakerphone. She didn't know I was in the hallway. "He acts like Mason's some second-rate stepkid. But Lila? Oh, she gets the gold-plated future. I'm telling you, it's favoritism. Plain and simple." I stood there, invisible in my own home, listening to the woman I married twist my intentions into cruelty. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because a part of me, the hopeful, exhausted part, still believed we could come back from this. I just didn't know that the worst was yet to come. 2 days later, Lila came into my room with her laptop in her hands and her face all red and puffy from crying. She sat on the edge of my bed without saying anything at first, just holding the laptop like it was made of glass. I muted the game on my phone and sat up. "Dad," she finally said. "I was looking at the FAFSA stuff. Mason's already filling his out, and he doesn't know what to do for the family contribution part. Claudia said I should offer to split the college fund so he doesn't have to stress." I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. "Lila, sweetheart, that's not your problem to solve." She didn't look at me, but I feel bad. That money's not a handout. It's not a family pool. It's what I saved for you. You shouldn't have to feel bad for that. She bit her lip and nodded, but I could see she didn't believe it. Not all the way. That night over dinner, Claudia barely spoke to me. She served Mason a double helping of pasta and made a big deal about how we all need to pull together as a family. Every word was a dagger. I glanced at Mason, hoping maybe he'd chime in and say something, but he just stared at his plate. Ever since the college fund thing came out, he'd barely spoken a word to me. I'd gone from stepdad to stranger in under a week. After dinner, Claudia cornered me in the laundry room. "You know," she said, folding towels like they were made of dynamite, "I've been thinking, maybe this is all happening because you never fully accepted Mason." "What?" I blinked. "Where the hell is that coming from?" She dropped the towel and crossed her arms. "You treat him like a guest. Always have. Maybe this is your way of making sure he knows he doesn't belong. I was stunned. I coached his soccer team. I helped him build his science project. I drove him to driver's ed. Yeah, and when it came time to really show you cared, you showed who your real child is. That one hit like a slap. Later, when Mason passed me in the hallway, I tried to talk to him. Hey buddy, you doing okay? He didn't even slow down. Don't worry about it, he said without turning his head. You've made it pretty clear how you feel. And just like that, the air in the house turned thick. You could cut it with a butter knife. Lila was quiet and jumpy. Mason was cold, and Claudia had gone full martyr. She spent most of her time sighing loudly and wiping imaginary crumbs off the counter while muttering things like, I guess some people just don't believe in fairness. I sat down with Claudia one evening after the kids had gone to bed. I wanted to try, even if part of me already knew it was useless. Listen, I said, I know this whole thing feels lopsided, but we can look at other options for Mason. Trade school, grants, community college transfers. There are paths. Her eyes snapped up. So now my son gets the bargain bin future? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to be realistic. No, Marcus. What you're saying is that my son's not worth investing in like your daughter is. I closed my eyes for a second and tried not to raise my voice. I'm saying I can't pretend everything is equal when it never has been. I raised Lila alone for 17 years. That money is hers. I can't, won't, take it away from her now. She stood up and walked out of the room without another word. The next morning, Lila was already dressed and ready for school when I came down. She had barely touched her cereal. I asked if she wanted a ride and she just said, I'll walk. Lila, you don't have to feel guilty, I said. She kept her eyes on the front door. I know I don't have to, but I still do. The door clicked shut behind her. I looked around the quiet kitchen and felt it settle in. I was losing everyone, one guilt trip at a time. Claudia had poisoned the well, and now even the people I loved most were starting to doubt me. And the worst part? I was starting to doubt myself too. It was a Wednesday. I'd left work early because the headache I'd been trying to ignore all week finally won. I just wanted to come home, take some aspirin, and lie down. The house was quiet when I walked in. No clanging pots. No Mason's music. No Lila on a FaceTime call in the kitchen. But I heard voices upstairs, muffled but urgent. I crept up the stairs, expecting to hear Claudia on a work call. Instead, I caught Mason's voice. Wait, do I write down his social security number or mine? Claudia replied, low and clipped. Use his. It'll look better on the application. You'll get approved faster. I stopped cold outside the office. The door was cracked open just enough to see Mason sitting at my desk, typing on my laptop. Claudia stood behind him, holding a stack of papers. I recognized the green edge of a credit application, the kind that came in the mail. Mom, Mason said, his voice shaking a little, this feels wrong. Claudia didn't miss a beat. What feels wrong is your future getting flushed down the drain because Marcus refuses to help. We're just doing what we have to do. I pushed the door open slowly. What exactly are you doing? They both froze. Claudia's mouth opened, but no words came out. Mason stared at the screen like it might erase itself if he just looked hard enough. What are you doing? I asked again, stepping into the room. Mason stood up like he'd been burned. It's not what it looks like. Oh, it looks like you're using my name and my information to open accounts without my permission, I said. So unless there's another explanation, that's exactly what it is. Claudia's arms crossed immediately, defensively. Don't start with the dramatics. We were just trying to get him some loans. You wouldn't help. What choice did we have? You had a choice not to commit fraud. That was one. Please, she scoffed. You act like you've never bent the rules for your daughter. I blinked. Bent the? Are you seriously comparing saving money over 17 years to stealing someone's identity? She raised her voice. We are talking about college. About our son's future, and you left him no other option. I turned to Mason. Is that true? You thought this was okay? He couldn't meet my eyes. She said you'd never find out, that it wasn't a big deal. I stared at the screen. My name filled out on a credit card application. My social security number typed into a private student loan form. All while I was at work trying to keep this family together. My vision went white hot. I reached over and yanked the laptop closed. You're lucky I'm not calling the police, I said. Claudia scoffed again. Are you serious? I nodded. Dead serious. This isn't just about money anymore. This is trust. You crossed a line I didn't even think you would cross. I turned and walked out of the room. They didn't follow. I didn't pack a bag, just grabbed my wallet and keys and drove straight to my brother's place in Wheaton. He opened the door with a beer in one hand and a confused look on his face. Didn't expect you on a Wednesday. Yeah, I said. Me neither. I stayed 3 nights, slept on his couch, didn't check my email, didn't text Lila. I couldn't. I needed the distance, the quiet. I needed to breathe without Claudia's voice in my head or Mason's guilt hanging over me. One night, my brother and I sat in the backyard with a fire going and no music, just crickets and the occasional car passing by. You okay? He asked. I shook my head. I don't know how I missed it. The way she treats money like it grows on trees. The impulsive crap, the secret spending, the need to control everything. You didn't miss it, he said. You just wanted it to be something else. I looked up at the sky, pitch black with no stars. I thought we were building a family. Turns out I was just patching holes in a ship she already planned to sink. He didn't say anything back, just passed me another beer and sat with me in the silence. And in that silence, I finally saw it for what it was. This marriage wasn't broken. It was over. I came home on a Sunday morning, not because I was ready, but because I had to. Lila was due for her senior portrait fittings, and I wasn't about to let Claudia screw that up, too. I walked through the front door and didn't even have my shoes off before Claudia came into the foyer like a storm that had been waiting to break. "So, you just vanished for 3 days without a single word," she said, arms folded tight. "I needed space." "Oh, did you? Must be nice. Just running away while I clean up the mess you left." "I didn't take the bait. We need to talk." "Great. Let's talk about how you abandoned this family." I didn't flinch. "I want a divorce." Claudia froze, like the words punched the air out of her lungs. For a moment, I thought she might cry, but then, like clockwork, she pivoted. "You're unbelievable," she spat. "You're throwing away 6 years over a loan application?" "This isn't about the loan," I said calmly. "It's about lying. It's about stealing. It's about the way you twisted both kids around just to make yourself feel like the victim." "Oh, please," she said, her voice rising. "You've always preferred Lila. You never once treated Mason like your own. And now you're making me out to be some villain just because I wanted things to be fair." "Fair?" I asked. "Fair would have been discussing things like adults. Fair would have been not forging my name on financial documents. You crossed a line, Claudia, and I don't think you ever planned to come back from it." She stared at me, breathing hard, her eyes glossy. "So that's it? You're just done?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'm done." Her voice cracked. "You're going to destroy this family." "No," I said, steady and quiet. "You already did." That night, I spoke to Lila first. We sat in the backyard, the porch light buzzing, the air sticky with late summer humidity. She was quiet when I told her. Not surprised, just sad. "Is it my fault?" she asked. "No," I said immediately. "Absolutely not. You didn't do anything wrong." She said I was the reason everything's falling apart. I sighed. Of course she did. Lila looked down at her hands. "I didn't want Mason to feel left out. I tried to help. I know you did. And I'm proud of you for that. But helping doesn't mean giving up everything you've earned." She nodded slowly, but I could see the guilt still sitting heavy in her chest. "You're allowed to have a future," I told her. "You don't need to carry anyone else's mistakes." Later, I knocked on Mason's door. He opened it after a long pause. "I'm not here to fight," I said. "I just wanted to talk." He looked tired, like the last few weeks had worn him down in ways even he didn't understand. "I still want to help you," I said, "but it has to be on honest terms. I can't be part of this chaos anymore." He looked at the floor. "I didn't know she was going to do that with the loans. I swear, I didn't think she'd go that far." "I believe you." He nodded. "She said you never wanted me, that I was just something you had to put up with." I took a breath. "That's not true. I didn't raise you from birth, but I've tried. I really have. I still want to be in your corner, Mason. But we've got to stop pretending that money makes us a family. It doesn't." There was a long silence. Then Mason looked up and said, "I don't even want to go to a 4-year school." That caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I've been looking at mechanic programs, certification tracks, something hands-on." I just didn't say anything cause Mom would have lost it. For the first time in weeks, I felt something shift. A real conversation. A real connection. "That's great," I said. "You should do what fits you. Not what you want. Not even what I want. What you want." He nodded. "Can we look at programs this week?" I smiled. "Absolutely." Inside the house, Claudia slammed a door somewhere. But outside, in the dark with Mason and Lila both finally breathing a little easier, I realized something. Maybe we could still build something real, even if the foundation I thought we had was long gone. The paperwork went in on a Thursday. I filed for divorce through a quiet, steady firm in Aurora. No ads, no slogans, just people who knew what they were doing. Claudia didn't speak to me for 3 full days after the envelope was delivered. When she finally did, it wasn't words. It was her slamming drawers shut and stomping through the house like a teenager grounded on prom night. But by then, I was past anger. I was somewhere colder, calmer. The truth was, I'd started sleeping better. About a week after filing, I sat down with a financial advisor, someone independent of both of us. He reviewed our joint accounts, our debt, our spending history. After 10 minutes of clicking through Claudia's personal credit card charges, he leaned back in his chair and said, "I don't think you're fully aware of how deep the hole goes." Turns out, she had been racking up debt for years. Luxury subscriptions, boutique hotel charges for client work, spa memberships, high-end event planning software she never actually used. By the time we tallied it all, she was sitting on nearly 60 grand of personal debt, none of it mine. She'd been hiding it like dirty laundry under the bed, piling it higher every time she demanded equality in the house. Now it all made sense. Why she pushed so hard for Mason to get a piece of Lila's fund. Why she acted like that money belonged to the family. It was never about fairness. It was about survival. Her survival. I felt sick, but I also felt vindicated. One Saturday morning, Claudia knocked softly on my office door. She hadn't done that in years. For a second, I thought maybe she was going to apologize. Instead, she stepped inside and placed her phone on the desk between us. "I need your help figuring out how to get a lower rate on my card interest." I looked at the screen. A debt consolidation app was open. I leaned back in my chair. "You've got a financial planner. Use them." Her lips twisted. "You don't have to be cruel." "I'm not," I said. "I'm just not your lifeboat anymore." She left without saying anything. That night, Lila and I drove to Target to get her dorm checklist started. She had a printed list, color-coded, and scribbled with notes in the margins. "I still can't believe I'm really going," she said, scanning a set of twin Excel sheets. "You earned it," she smiled, and for a second, she looked like the little girl who used to draw on the driveway with sidewalk chalk. A kid with her whole future ahead of her. The night before she left for college, we sat on the porch with mugs of peppermint tea. She asked me if I thought Mason would be okay. "I think he will," I said. "He's smart, and now he's finally looking at a path that fits him." "You're still going to help him?" I nodded. "Yeah, just in a way that makes sense. And with boundaries." She looked down into her mug. "You think Claudia's gonna stop?" I let out a short laugh. "No, she's already sent 2 emails in the last 3 days. One asking if we can revisit the financial settlement. The other asking if I'll co-sign on a lease for a new office." "Seriously?" "Yup. What did you say?" "I didn't." She smiled. "Good." We sat in silence for a while, just the sound of summer bugs and the occasional car passing by. The next morning, I loaded up her suitcase, hugged her so tight she squeaked, and watched her walk through the doors of a life she'd worked for, one that no one could take from her now. Back home, the house was quiet. Claudia had moved into a rental across town. Mason stayed with me most nights now, especially since we'd started touring certification programs. We'd mapped out a plan: part-time job, community college, and a reputable mechanic school up in Joliet that offered an accelerated program. Some evenings, he'd come into the kitchen with greasy hands and excited stories about brake calipers and diagnostic scanners. I'd never seen him that animated before. And Claudia? She alternated between silence and chaos. One day, she'd email a polite request for a copy of our tax return. The next, she'd send a message that read, "You've ruined this family, and you know it." I stopped replying. I wasn't playing the role anymore. No more fixer, no more scapegoat, just a man in a quieter house, learning how to breathe again. By the time September rolled around, the house felt different. Quiet in the mornings, calm at night, no doors slamming, no guilt-laced sighs from down the hall, no silent war over who used the last of the oat milk. It was strange, not good or bad, just strange. But what surprised me most wasn't the silence. It was Mason. He started stopping by the garage on Saturdays. At first it was casual, just hanging out while I worked on my neighbor's old Chevy. He asked a few questions, handed me tools. Then one weekend, he showed up in work boots and a ball cap. "I figured if I'm going to do this, I might as well learn from someone who knows what they're doing," he said. It was the first time in months he'd looked me in the eye. We didn't talk about Claudia. We didn't talk about the fund, or the screaming, or the college plans that crashed and burned. We just worked. After we finished rotating the tires, I tossed him a soda from the mini fridge and sat on the back steps with him. "You still thinking about that trade program up in Joliet?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, I've been emailing one of the advisors. They've got a fall enrollment date in October. You'd be good at it." He gave a small smile. "Honestly, it's the first time school sounds, I don't know, like it could actually lead somewhere." We spent the next few days digging into the details: tuition costs, application requirements, tools he'd need, even housing options if he wanted to room share nearby. I made him a spreadsheet. He made fun of my color coding, but kept using it. We sat down one night with a pizza and laid it all out. "If we budget it right, I think I can cover the bulk of the tuition for the first year," I said. He looked up fast. "No, you've already done enough. I can apply for a couple grants and maybe pick up some shifts at the tire shop." "I'm not doing this out of guilt," I said. "This is me investing in someone I believe in." His ears turned red. "Yeah, well, thanks." I nodded. "You earned it." There was a long pause. Then Mason asked, "Did you always know what you wanted to do?" "Not even close," I said. "I just knew I liked taking broken things and making them work again." He looked thoughtful at that. Our rhythm became routine. Lunches on Tuesdays after his work shifts, Saturday mornings in the garage. We'd talk shop, swap stories about terrible customer requests, and argue over torque wrenches. It wasn't forced. It wasn't polite. It was real. Some days he'd open up about stuff, about feeling stuck between parents for years, about how he always felt like he was supposed to be someone else to keep Claudia happy, about how it felt like he'd failed because he didn't want the life she planned for him. "I don't think I was ever college material," he said once. "Not like Lila." I leaned forward. "Mason, you don't need to compare yourself to anyone, especially not your stepsister. She's got her path. You've got yours." He nodded slowly, like he was still getting used to that idea. It wasn't a father-son thing, not really. It was something different, something quieter. Two guys building trust one conversation at a time, surrounded by half-empty oil cans and the hum of an old garage heater. The more honest we got, the stronger it felt. One afternoon after we replaced a radiator in a '99 Civic, Mason wiped his hands on a rag and said, "You think I'll be any good at this?" I looked at the kid who once couldn't tell a lug nut from a spark plug and who now knew how to gap a spark plug blindfolded. "Yeah," I said, "I really do." He smiled, full and real this time. It didn't fix everything, not overnight, but it was enough. And for once, enough felt like more than I ever expected. It was a Thursday night, about 9:30. I'd just finished loading the dishwasher and was halfway through a rerun of some home renovation show when I heard the knock on the door. Not a text, not a phone call, a knock. When I opened it, Claudia was standing there, drunk, her mascara smudged, one heel missing, eyes glassy and swollen like she'd been crying for hours. She didn't say anything right away, just stared at me, then gave this weak little laugh and stepped forward, like we were still married, like this was still her house. I blocked the doorway with my arm. "Claudia, can I just come in?" she asked, slurring a bit. "Please, I don't want to talk outside." "No, you're not coming in." She blinked, clearly not expecting that. "Are you serious right now?" she said, swaying slightly. "After everything?" "Exactly because of everything," I replied. She scoffed, then dragged her fingers through her hair and sat down right there on the porch step. "You know," she said, "I thought about calling you 100 times. I wrote letters, didn't send them, tried to forget you, but I couldn't. I stayed by the door. That's not my problem anymore." She looked up at me like I'd just punched her. "You were supposed to fight for me, Marcus," she whispered. "You were supposed to push through it. We had a family." "No," I said. "We had a disaster. We had secrets and manipulation and a marriage where one person kept crossing lines while the other kept pretending not to notice." She looked away. "I loved you," she said, her voice cracking. "I believe you did," I said. "But love without respect doesn't mean much." She started to cry again, soft at first, then louder. I turned and walked inside. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just picked up the phone and called her sister, Deb. "Claudia's at my place," I said. "Drunk. You need to come get her." 20 minutes later, headlights hit the driveway. Deb climbed out and helped Claudia into the passenger seat. She didn't look at me, just kept muttering under her breath, like the air itself had betrayed her. As they pulled away, I stood in the doorway, watching the red taillights disappear. I wasn't angry. I wasn't relieved. I was done. Later that night, I logged into Lila's college portal. She'd just posted pictures from a marine biology lab, smiling in a wetsuit, standing on the deck of a research boat, holding up some slimy thing with too much enthusiasm. She looked happy, really happy. I sent her a message. "Me, proud of you. You're killing it out there." A minute later, she replied, "Lila, thanks, Dad. You're the reason I'm here. Love you." I stared at that message longer than I probably should have. For the first time in a long while, I felt it settle in my chest, this quiet, sturdy kind of peace. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. It was just mine. I had protected Lila. I had helped Mason find his footing. And I had finally, fully, shut the door on Claudia's chaos. I wasn't rebuilding anything. I was building something new, brick by brick, and I was doing it on my own terms. The first letter came through my cousin Tanya, a small envelope, hand-delivered to my front porch, because Claudia didn't want to start anything. Inside was a folded note in Claudia's handwriting, neat, tidy, manipulative as ever. It said she hoped I was finding peace, and that maybe someday, I'd understand why she had to do what she did. She included a Polaroid of Mason from when he was 10, and beneath it, in looping script, "Families bend. They're not supposed to break." I didn't respond. 2 days later, I got a call from my Aunt Gwen. She said Claudia had stopped by her house in tears, talking about reconciliation and second chances. "She's really not doing well. Marcus, can't you just talk to her?" I kept my voice calm. "No, and please don't let her use you as a middleman. If she has something to say, she can send it through the lawyer." Gwen sighed. "She says you're being cold. I'm being clear." That week, Claudia dropped off a gift bag for Lila, an expensive leather-bound journal, a candle, and a note that read, "Tell her I'll always be her second mom, even if you erase me." I didn't tell Lila. She didn't need that cloud hanging over her first semester. Instead, I sent the bag straight back, unopened, via certified mail. My message was simple. Do not use my daughter to crawl back into my life. But the attempts kept coming, always indirect. A message forwarded through Deb. A voicemail passed along by Mason. A handwritten note mailed to my work address. It was like she couldn't believe she no longer had access. That I had actually locked the door this time, not just closed it. And maybe the most exhausting part was the people who tried to guilt me into reopening it. "Come on, man. She's Mason's mom. She's trying. Isn't that worth something? Don't let pride ruin everything." But it wasn't pride. It was preservation. So I sat down one weekend and sent a long message to every relative who'd been pulled into the middle. Aunts, uncles, cousins, Claudia's sisters. Even my own brother, who meant well, but had called her just to hear her side. The message was blunt. Please don't relay messages from Claudia. Please don't send her gifts to my house. Please stop telling me what she's feeling or how hurt she is. If you care about me, respect my boundary. If you care about Lila, don't drag her into this. Claudia's behavior was dishonest, manipulative, and illegal. Forgiveness is not the same as access. Some people didn't like it. I got a few passive-aggressive replies. One cousin left me on read and didn't show up to Thanksgiving. That was fine. I wasn't cleaning up after other people's messes anymore. Instead, I focused on what was in front of me. Mason started night classes at the trade program. He showed up twice a week in grease-streaked jeans, still clutching fast food wrappers from his part-time gig, talking about engines like they were ancient mysteries waiting to be solved. He was thriving. We created a new routine: Sunday brunches, parts store runs, budget check-ins every first of the month. It wasn't flashy. It was honest. Lila called every few days from school. She talked about tide patterns, lab partners, and a professor who let her take home a squid spine because no one else wanted it. I sent her care packages with protein bars and dumb socks, and a sticky note that always said the same thing. You've got this. And one evening, she invited me to join a Zoom call for her marine bio presentation. I logged in early, still in my hoodie, and watched as my daughter, my brilliant, scrappy, self-made daughter, walked through slides about conservation and sea turtles with the kind of confidence I'd only seen glimpses of before. When she finished, she smiled right into the camera and said, "Thanks, Dad. I wouldn't be here without you." I didn't say anything. I just nodded, because if I tried to talk, my voice would have cracked. That night, I stood in the kitchen with a cup of tea, looking out at the yard. The porch light flickered, the wind nudged the empty swing, and for the first time in what felt like years, my thoughts weren't racing. Claudia could keep sending letters, playing games, manipulating strangers into carrying her message, but she wouldn't reach me, because I wasn't living in the mess anymore. I was living in the life I built, a life where love didn't have strings, where peace wasn't something I had to earn, and where the only thing that mattered, really mattered, was this. My daughter was free, and so was I.